Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Tomic, and today I'm pleased to introduce Christopher Gregory as CEO of GTN at Europe, API-first brokerage infrastructure. Hello, Christopher.
Hello. How are you?
It's nice to see you. And I think for me personally, brokerage is a really interesting part of the financial world because there are different stuff right now. A lot of things are in AI and in this crypto and stablecoin world, but brokerage is still quite interesting and quite effective part of the fintechs.
It's still the traditional and still the innovative bit as well.
Yeah, and in this case, you spent a lot of time and decades maybe into building the brokerage platforms. And I'm pretty interested personally about what lessons have you learned for executing, and what do you think a C-level is underestimating or getting wrong while building the platforms like that?
I think it's the interaction between regulation and technology.
Yeah.
And the amount of time it takes engaging with the regulators on the regulatory licenses. It's just whatever project plan that you think you have when it comes to your regulatory licenses, double it.
Yeah.
Double the amount of time it takes. There's just the level of detail and the level of preparedness that you need on the compliance side is just, it's almost impossible to underestimate.
Maybe there is a good example with the drawing. If you're sketching something really fast, you can get the picture, but for the regulator, it's not good enough. You need to be really detailed to explain what you're doing.
Yeah, it's the implementation of the regulations into the technology and then explaining it to the regulator that is where the challenge is.
I'm coming from the technology world in my experience. So what do you think, why it makes so hard to have this translation bridge between the compliance, the business needs, and then into the technology? Because everything is based in the tech stack and the frameworks, languages, everything based. But I still hear those questions how do we explain to engineers what we do and how it's supposed to work?
Well, because fundamentally, regulators are compliance people and lawyers. And there are different species than technology people. They literally don't speak the same language. And trying to bridge that gap in understanding, that is the bit that is the challenging part.
One thing that your product set to stand out is $1 fractional bonds. And
yes,
from my experience, a bonds really interesting and nice instrument, but what actually makes that work? Because slicing the green bonds or a really low risk products like that, how actually you make it happen?
We built our own fractional engine, and it's built on an asset class agnostic basis. So it works in the same way as equity. We just built it as an asset class agnostic from the beginning. Fixed income appeals to a very different client type than equities or than equity options, for example. And it opens us up to different use cases.
And you've been CEO for Europe about 18 months, and my congrats with the AC approval. What the Europe customers are asking for that Asia and Middle East playbook didn't anticipate, because there is a cultural aspect, I think, and the customers in European Union are driven differently, they consuming information differently, and they making decisions differently.
It's a lot more emphasis on client asset segregation and client asset safeguarding. It's a lot more emphasis on compliant processes. Asian clients, Middle Eastern clients can be quite technology driven, whereas, European clients can be just want to emphasize both the technology and the end client experience, but they equally emphasize the client asset segregation and the compliance approach.
That totally makes sense. And maybe the last question, because everything is spacing right now really fast, evolution of the stablecoins, AI, and brokerage. What do you envision? Are there going to be any changes in brokerage as a process and as a technology for, I don't know, next 3-5 years?
I think what we're seeing is almost bringing together all of those moving parts. So at the moment, crypto is quite separate from securities trading, which is quite separate from options trading.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing is retail clients wanting things that traditionally only institutional clients had access to, and then wanting to access multiple approaches and be creative with how they use them. So, the future is more about joining things together, making them realizable.
Basically sounds like a one-stop shop that will allow be more creative and flexible even before you know what way you head into in making decisions.
Being able to move really fast, respond to client demand very quickly. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris, for this discussion and sharing your experience with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.